everyone. We'll just give it a couple minutes for everyone to join before we kick off. You can see Carmen from Convert, fellow converter. I
How do you
think
even see people? I don't know how to use Zoom. Like, I feel like I'm a child right now.
the in participants, and then you can see everyone
Okay, then.
following in. Don't worry about it.
Oh, okay, let's see. I'm old. Okay, there it is. Cool.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today. So it looks like we're now also streaming on LinkedIn. Hi Ali. See someone I know in there.
Da, Alina, bună, Alina, bine ai venit. Sorry, she's Romanian, so I had to. Oh, I think you're looking at a different Ali.
Yeah, two Alis.
You saw how instantly I went in Romanian? Bam,
Yeah, switched.
switched.
Okay, why don't we get started? So, hello everyone. I am Marcella Sullivan. I'm here on behalf of Convert. I'm their in-house CRO expert, and this is one that I've been really looking forward to because I love having a chat with Juliana, but this one is going to be live and you guys get to watch it as well. So Juliana probably doesn't need introduction for most of you. She's Associate Director of Data and Digital Experience at Monks, and she's going to talk to us today about her brand moments framework. So how do I kick this off? By asking you, what made you start designing this framework? What was the need that you saw that this gives an answer to?
Well, yes. So first of all, good to be here and to talk to you, of course. I mean, I think the short answer is that ever since I started working with natural language processing and language models like 3 years ago, I kind of I kind of have like this aversion to NPS scores or like recall studies or surveys or kind of like this very boxed data sources of data that you use to make decision, but also kind of like with just using funnel analysis or using heat maps. Like I feel that even though these methods are good, and I'm not saying they're useless in any way, because I'm not trying to get hate in the first 3 minutes of the webinar. I will say that I think modern experience, digital experience, is not led or supported by an interface. It's kind of something that happens across million touch points, across algorithms, and so on. So brand measurement, based on the work I do with the brands that I work with, feels kind of like it's stuck in a world that lags all these signals.
Mm.
So I kind of like said there has to be a better way for us to collect qualitative data or have a better understanding about how this brand is perceived versus just looking at what happens on the website or what happens across a funnel. So the first time I actually touched this was in 2022, August 2022 to 2023, when I worked on a client of ours from EMEA. We worked with Starbucks, and for Starbucks at Monks, we have been building their apps for the last 9 years across EMEA. So they have tons of customer reviews in their App Store and Google Store. So I saw a very good opportunity for us to look at different sources of data than just Firebase or GA and so on to come up with hypotheses that we can test or things that maybe you couldn't find just by looking at or reading them. So that's how basically kind of we realized that what a company says about itself matters less than what is being said in these reviews, in chat groups, on Reddit, or even AI generated stuff like generative search and so on. So most companies are still yet relying on this traditional, I don't know, sentiment trackers, NPS, satisfaction over time, but these methods are very, very inadequate for capturing kind of like these brand shifts, if that makes sense. So that's kind of like how I went there, like just from having to deal with boxing with
Yeah.
the data being very, very boxed.
And you called this in your recent Substack article. You said that if we're only looking at the website, that's the last 5% of the journey.
Yes.
You're with this framework, you're going after the 95% that comes before.
Yeah, correct.
So I saw you speak in Copenhagen recently as well, where you
Yes.
also talked about Starbucks. So it might be useful to talk a little bit more about them and how the brand moments related to that as well.
Yeah, so for Starbucks, as I said, we're building their apps. And imagine there's EMEA and MENA, so there's like 32 markets. And I have to be very careful, of course, with what I share because I cannot share everything. But what we noticed is that, of course, internationalization is a thing when it comes to marketing. So, for instance, you cannot use the same copy or the same approach you use in France, the same as in UK or in Italy or in other, markets. So once we did this semantic analysis and sentiment analysis on their reviews, we saw how the perception and understanding of the brand values and understanding how people understand and consume this product is very, very, very different, especially in MENA. MENA, it's a whole different ballgame. Like that would require its own webinar to talk about. So working on Starbucks and reading and seeing this mix of frustration, a mix of like excitement, mix of, I guess, apprehension, it was a very, very small percentage of people that were actually talking about the app or the interface versus how they perceive the Starbucks brand a la large, or their products, or their customer support, or the in-store experience. So they were using the review outlet to voice their opinion, but like a very good percentage of time, their opinions was not necessarily related to the app, but to the actual brand. And the
Mhm,
stuff that they were coming up with was not something we would serve them necessarily in the interface or in the app. It was things that they read on Reddit. There was things that they saw in the news. It was a mix of PR. It was a mix of a lot of things, or search even. So that kind of like told me that this is an opportunity for me to kind of go and look at different data sources. Like, why should I take all my ideas from what happens from A to B in this uh, on the website or in the app. And I ended up, as you know, because I was talking about this last year when you were as well at Marketing Analytics Summit, that I started actually looking at search, and I was connecting the Search Console data to the Google Cloud platform and to be able to process the search queries and the search behavior to understand what is the intent that people have, what are the search patterns that they have. And then there, I noticed different data, sorry, different flavor of data. So then it's like, wow, like we have so many points that we're not currently using when we ideate and we come up with hypotheses.
mhm,
And we are like so freaking obsessed with seeing how many people click the checkout button or how many people click 3 times on a or scroll 2 times on the page. Like we are so kind of like trapped within the interface that we only, we have the impression that when a user comes to our website, they come ready, like we didn't even take them to dinner yet. Like they just come ready. It's just like, come on, take me, and that's how we treat people. Like there's nothing else there. Like it's not something that is personalized. Like maybe that person does have intent,
mhm,
but maybe that has a very, very low understanding of your brand. And in fact, actually, I wish I would. This is like why I should probably have at least one slide. But I saw this research that Rand Fishkin shared, and I want to make sure I find this here so I don't talk out of my ass. But to prove my point, he did a talk recently, like maybe 2, 3 weeks ago, and he said that the volume of generic keywords across Google in the US was 68.80%. And then only 31 point something percent was branded. So what does this mean? It means that if you have almost 70% of non-branded search, that search is definitely informational. Like people are seeking information, validation, and answers. So think about that.
mhm.
Then if you go on a website or an app, as CRO people, we only assume transactional intent, like we're ready to sell. So if I have 70% of the searches that come to my website looking for information and validation and answers and so on, but here I am trying to convert that poor bastard,
Mhm.
where is it gonna go?
You're not taking them out for dinner.
And you know what is the level of transactional intent across Google right now in the US? 1.13%.
So that's people ready to
Ready
buy.
to buy.
Yeah, yeah.
why are we doing this? And I started being angry, of course. I rant a lot, like everybody that follow me for some time knows that I rant. But I just realized that it's kind of like we don't think about this stuff. Like because we're very much forced to respond for the interface or forced to respond for the checkout or forced to respond for our own little piece of land, we don't have time necessarily to go and look outside and see what happens. So that's kind of like
Yeah.
when I realized, and I don't want to turn this into a technical conversation because I did saw Mike here, Mike Hermanos. Hello, Mike. So I'm tempted a bit to go a bit into GCP and BigQuery, but I won't, so I don't get people out of this webinar. But I would say that the more data sources I added in BigQuery and I combined, I got answers that I could never ever get from looking at a GA4 exploration.
Yeah.
It's where data goes to die in a GA4
So,
exploration.
true. So one of the interesting things you said there was about the hypotheses, right? So
Yeah.
everyone always talks about experiment everywhere and thinking outside of the box, but then if you keep going back to traditional analytics and user research, and that's it, you basically what you're saying is to truly come up with some new and exciting hypotheses that aren't just around sales. You need to be looking at these kind of brand
Yeah.
moments and how we convince them and stuff. So
Yep.
has it had quite a big impact on the hypotheses that you are coming up with when you're using the kind of framework?
Oh my God, yes, especially when it comes to, like, for instance, a great example I can give you. We had a client from the US that was trying to go through a redesign. At the moment, the way they marketed themselves was very much product led. And when I say product led, I don't mean it in a good way. I mean it.
Product
I mean,
led brackets derogatory.
derogatory, exactly. I'm basically they were again assuming transactional intent. So when people were going on the website, instead of saying like, hey, like give me reasons for why I need your products and services, it was just download this, get this, get this, get this. But there was no warming up, like there's no courtmanship anymore that websites do, right? So when we did the search intent analysis for them, we realized that they were constantly being cannibalized by their help documents. So when people had certain information, needed something, some certain information about the brand, they were going to their help pages. But guess what? The help pages were not optimized for conversion. There
Yeah.
was no way you can go from help to the website. There was none. You had to, get out and go and look for it again organically. So imagine all the missing information that you had there. So that was kind of like 80% of the searches were being cannibalized. So once we did this analysis, we realized kind of like what are the patterns, what are the categories of search, what are the main sentiment that people have. And this way, it showed us that we were never talking about like very specific features of this product on the page. We never had an FAQ on the page. We never provided people with enough information to make an informed decision. So, as I said earlier, people have different flavors of intent,
Yeah.
different flavors. We cannot assume everybody comes and is ready and, let's go. So, what I see in brands that kind of like I guess where this clicks for some brands is when you show them the research and you show them like how people are behaving outside their website and what are this like the most fun part for me is with Brandwatch. So Brandwatch is the social media management tool that has a BigQuery export that you can use and go crazy with the data and you can find out like for instance what is the main narratives on Reddit versus the narratives on Meta versus the narratives in Facebook or Instagram, whatever, versus what you have on the website. And you will see
Mhm.
it's like such a big difference. So then you look at the stuff and you come up with better hypotheses so you can serve these types of different flavors of intent versus just I don't know, looking at the device breakdown from mobile to desktop, and then 30 people clicked on this because it's red and only and 60 on this because it's green. So I guess we should A/B test this button for the thousandth time.
Yeah.
It's it's it's
You-
it's very hard to
Yeah, I
see
mean, also,
progress like that.
yeah, there's also the argument with you can optimize to a sale, but are you actually giving them the context to understand
Yeah.
what they're buying to actually want to use the product, particularly in situations where, say, it's a subscription model? Rushing people into a sale isn't necessarily going to always lead to the best outcome long term.
Yeah.
So I think maybe let's kind of move on to the framework in your own words. So, briefly, what is a brand moment in your own words?
Okay. So first of all, let's define brand.
Mhm.
So for me, brand, and I wrote about this in my newsletter. For me, brand is a construct. It's a fluid construct happening on decentralized real-time conversations. This I'm quoting myself right now, Jackson, J. Jackson, you know, figure one. But it's a deconstructed concept, it's fluid, and it happens across decentralized real-time conversations. So if there's one thing that I want you to take with you guys today is this. It doesn't happen under somebody's control anymore. In the past, you used to have control on the narrative that is about your brand. But look around. I look at all the shit that's happening in the world right now. Pick anything, especially the people in the US. Just pick anything, guys. Right now, that's happening.
They've got lots of choice. Yeah.
Exactly. Like you got lots of choices. So for me, this framework and in general, like this framework for me is a way to understand, detect, and kind of like decode the actual moments that lead to a perception. So the way I came up with this is from and Craig, because I see Craig there, and Craig will know this for sure. There was this guy called Leon Festinger that came up with the cognitive dissonance theory. So basically, he did this test at Stanford, like all the tests, like A/B tests were happening at Stanford. But basically, the concept of cognitive dissonance means that you're doing things that are in contradiction with your self-image. So when you build a perception about a certain product and service, because we are very sensitive people and sensitive, monsters and beings, we're gonna create that perception that fits us from a personality perspective, then it makes us look good to ourselves. I don't know if this makes sense, but I will try to position it like this. We are very afraid as humans to be perceived in a negative way, so we tend to associate with things that makes us look better, seem better, sound better, and so on. Now, coming into the digital world, people are focusing very much on ad impression awareness in a way that is kind of like always fixed into measurement, fixed into GA, fixed into Google Ads, fixed into your CDP, and so on. But the problem is that brand perception is not necessarily just the result of a campaign. It's kind of like a cumulative perception. So brand moments are actually the building blocks of that perception. It's all the interactions that you have with a set service or product across different channels, across time, that helps you, get to that final result that is perception. So that's the best way I can describe it. And I use these brand moments to kind of like segment different places in time where, hold up, because I'm looking at Craig right now with all the tiny, that is your brand. Exactly, exactly. That's the result. Thank you, Craig. That was better than what I said. But that's exactly what it is. It's a cumulative of little points in time. Think about the scatter plot, and then those things finally get together in the middle, and
And
that's your
yeah,
brand.
and those things can be good or bad.
Correct.
A combination of the two or only one or the other. I have really liked the example that you gave recently of co-workers talking about tools, right? That's a brand moment.
Yeah,
If
that's a moment.
someone uses your tool and they go and say to someone else, it's terrible,
Yeah,
then that's a brand moment and it's solid there.
yeah.
So yeah, we talked a bit about why those moments aren't captured in typical analytics and user research, and you've built on that. So then within the framework, you have contextual experience debt. Could you talk a bit about what that is?
So contextual experience, it had, if the first name I had for contextual experience depth was similarity. So this happens when a moment feels off-brand or confusing or emotionally jarring. I will give you a very unpleasant example. But let's look at Tesla, right? Tesla was loved by everybody, all the fanboys and girls from around the world, or fan people from around the world. Then Elon Musk happened and completely ruined Tesla's reputation. And that is basically a contextual experience that like you have something that It's like you build motivation and you build an image of something, but then something happens and completely destroys that type of perception that you have and turns it from negative to positive or from positive to negative, because it can be positive as well. So that's the best way. These moments, when they occur, you have to be able to see them across time. And when you do this using machine learning and AI, and if you have a system that is plugged to your social, that is plugged to your reviews, that is plugged to all this unstructured data, you can see an anomaly detection or you can do a network analysis, and you can see in real time when these things happen. Like, for instance, you have like some bad articles about your brand, or some people complain about it on Reddit, and that thing goes viral, and then you see that it's also moving to LinkedIn or it's moving to other platforms. So then if you have all these moments that are the total opposite of your perception, it creates like this depth and this distance. And another way I can position this is like the highest version, but another way that this manifests is, for instance, you do a campaign and you promote the shit out of a product or a service, and then you get on the website and the experience is totally different.
Mm.
It's completely missing everything. Like, imagine you're promoting, I don't know, a new car or a new, I don't know, fashion item, anything, and you do such a good campaign, but then on the website, the experience is totally disconnected, and you're taking that person either from zero, like, hey, welcome to our brand. This is the first time. It's like creating these pauses and these long pauses between what it is and what people are assuming you are, and then they come on your website or your app or a landing page, and it's a total different experience. So that's what contextual experience depth is. It's like the distance between what the perception is and what is the content that you serve. So initially I was calling this similarity. And I worked with Krasimir Bambalov, who's at Monks as well. He's kind of like my partner in crime for everything. He's a very, very good, probably the best data scientist that I know. So when we worked with this American brand that I mentioned earlier, when we did the search intent analysis, we basically created the function that was looking at the meta titles, meta description, all the things basically about a landing page, all the meta of a landing page. And we were comparing those with the search queries and comparing it with the sentiment. So we basically, that function was called similarity, and it measures to what extent the user intent is met on the page based on the content of the page. So once we added more data sources, we realized that this depth is very, very big, especially like, for instance, if you come from social, from a campaign that is very popular on social, and you're the Glossier of the world, or I don't know, Rem Beauty, or all these huge beauty brands, and then you come from social where you see Selena Gomez, I don't know, using something, and then you go on the website and you're like,
Mm.
like, exactly, relevance. That's the word. Like, it's not there. So
Yeah.
that's kind of like what happens, and why I call this depth. We have technical depth, but we also have experience depth as well.
And I guess it's about that joined up thinking as well. Like you're saying, a discordance between advertising or brand presence and then what's actually on the website.
Yeah.
But it's quite a hard thing to do, to make all the legs of the caterpillar move in the same direction. But
Yeah.
you've been able to show results from doing that, and results from addressing this experience debt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very, I think, and I'm not trying to like invent words and more buzzwords, because God knows we have so many. And I'm trying to take like a very conservative approach in naming this stuff. But it's mostly, everything is kind of led by common sense. Because think about it, like, if you invest $1 million in a campaign, you're launching a new product, you're launching a new service, and you put all your eggs in that campaign's basket, but you don't optimize the other touch points of the journey that somebody might have. If you're focusing just on the campaign, or you're focusing just on the website, you're ignoring everything else. So what I'm trying to say here is kind of like combine these things together to create that type of, holistic experience that we've been talking about for the last 15 years. I lost count how much.
Yeah.
Personalization,
Talking about.
holistic experience. I feel old, but it's the truth. And Craig, like we have Craig here, like Craig probably can knows very well how many people have been talking about this stuff for ages and is still not getting there. So yeah,
So that kind of brings us on to the other part of the framework, which is the perception-led segmentation.
yeah.
So once you have this understanding, now we're kind of getting into segmenting these people. Could you explain the thinking behind that? And yeah, in your own words again.
So perception-led segmentation, basically it's a way of moving from people might think after this webinar that I really hate GA4, and that's true. But it's kind of like I know, Mike, yes. So basically with perception-led segmentation is like moving beyond uh, demographics or behavioral segmentation. So you have to look at patterns, right? So it's basically clustering users, but not how based on what they do. Like if they click here 3 times and scroll 2 times, boom, let's put them in a segment. It's mostly about how they interpret and emotionally respond to your brand. That's the best way I can explain it. And you can measure this. Thank God now with using AI and natural language processing, Craig actually wrote an amazing book about that. If somebody can drop it there in the comments would be good. But like you can use AI right now to measure how people interpret and emotionally respond to your brand at scale. So this perception-led segmentation is a way to cluster these types of users and these patterns and these different flavors of intent, as I like to name it. And it's built from search behavior and feedback and journey drop-offs, but also kind of like the cross-channel signals that happens. So most segmentation in general assumes that users are just rational people that just come here. Yes, I'm just gonna purchase this and I'm gonna go about my day. No, like perception in general, brand perception requires you to look at intent in a way that goes beyond the logic. It's a very emotional place you can look at, and thank God that you have all these tools that right now at your in your how do you call it in English, in your belt as a growth person, as a CRO, as a product marketer, as a whatever you are. There's so many tools right now you can use to do your job like 10x better. It's just about having to look outside your comfort zone. So the data sources that I normally recommend to use for this types of segmentation is definitely search query,
Mhm.
which you can get from Google Search Console. You connect Google Search Console has a direct, direct connection with BigQuery right there. Then you use do VOC clustering, so you can do what Craig has and Ali, in Iqbal Ali in the playbook. But you can also do it yourself. You can use your own small language model, and you can connect to your data sources, and you can do that in-house if you have data sciences people in your team. If you don't know how to get started with that, just reach out to me. Then you have drop-off points, you have social media discourse patterns, you have to look at how data moves from different interaction zones, like from pricing to login to support and so on. And it's a sum, it's a delta of all these things. Like you have to look at things that are not immediately, um, available. You just have to think outside the box. And it's one thing that I really like about our industry right now and the moment we are right now in our industry is that we have a very, very big privilege of being creative. Like think about this, like maybe like 20, 30 years ago to do this type of research, it would take months. It would take
Yeah,
so much. You would go to
yeah,
the library. You would go through all the Arvik science paper and archive and have to read about this stuff. But now we have all these sources, and instead of just using it to create, I don't know, action figures and putting them on LinkedIn, sorry if you're doing that, sorry, just use it for good. Use it to come up with better hypotheses. Use it to come up and find data sources that can help you, come up with better solutions to your problem. So yeah, that's where I am right now.
yeah. So one of the things is, and I totally agree with you, a lot of things are becoming easier and we have more tools and methods available to us than ever before. But the thing that I hear time and time again, and I know Craig will agree with me as well, is we don't have the time or we don't have the people. So I was going to ask you how would a team start applying this, but actually what I'm going to ask you is how does someone convince their team that it's worth their time to start looking into brand moments, to get the data scientists time to start pulling this together, to tell the team what it's about and why we're doing it, because it's sometimes quite hard to convince people to put that time aside. So what would you say is the way that you would sell this to a team?
So the best way to do it is again, you have to work very, very um to build relationships with people. I can say this from experience. I work only with very technical people. And especially like if we are to think about CRO, me going right now to a bunch of developers and say, hey, let's run this A/B test because I saw it on LinkedIn and I think it's so cool. For them, even if I say that, or even if I say I have 3 years of data that can prove them wrong, it doesn't matter. So what I do, and this is my experience, and it can't be everybody's experience, but I do spend a lot of time understanding the people is in my team's KPIs
Mm.
and job descriptions and the shit that they deal with. And I always try to align my ideas or my contribution to things that they already do. I know that we like in CRO, and again, me getting canceled, a lot of us try to or like to think of ourselves as centers of excellence. But I would say that if we are thinking about CRO as a center of excellence, let's think about development or data science or data engineering or data in general as centers of excellence. And some centers of excellence should be siloed, and it's okay to be siloed. Like we don't have to break all the silos. We have to look in the mirror and kind of like take a very, very deep look in the mirror and see if we're doing everything we can in our power to treat these people with the same amount of respect and consideration that we expect from them.
Mhm.
Because I've seen this quite a lot, and I see that people don't work to have an actual relationship and understand that person's KPI or understand that person's dynamics and authority inside the company. And we just go and ask, and we just bulldoze them with data, and it's like, do this, and then, oh, what a dick! Let me post on LinkedIn about this. It's like, what can you expect? So the way I would sell this is by genuinely trying to explain how this can help them do better. So for a developer, what would this help them with? You would say probably nothing, but I would say no. I would say, don't you want to know from a product development perspective or a roadmap perspective what you should focus on and how to organize your backlog better? Don't you
Mhm.
want some sort of signals from the market to know how to prioritize this? You also have to understand that in product teams, the people that come up with ideas for features and stuff are not people in product, are stakeholders that have nothing to do with the product and the roadmap. They just come, yes, let's release this in 6 markets. Why? It doesn't matter. So then people
Because I
have to
said
do it.
so.
But that's it. But that's what it is. Like product teams are feature factories right now. They A/B test so much that they don't even know how their products work anymore. So it's like you have to understand that each team has their own dynamics, but instead of coming and bulldozing, you have to align. So with developers, yes, this can give you some market signals. This can help you improve the core app experience. Like, look what people are saying across Reddit and this and what that. Let's do this or let's fix this. Or then you can go to marketing. And for marketing, this is very important. Like you spend money on ads and search. This is very, very important. And you can come and say, hey, did you know that most of our intent on the website is informational? Maybe we shouldn't bombard people with 3 pop-ups when they land. Maybe
Mhm.
we should guide them to understand how our product works first. So you can use this data to support them because this is not something that the reason why I like this space a lot and being between growth and product and CRO is because I get to touch a lot of departments.
Yep.
And that's why even my newsletter is very much focused on this dynamics and relationships and centers of influence and excellence. And I think again, the best way you can do it is to focus and understand the KPIs, the politics, the influence dots, and
Mhm.
understand how your work can add on and help them look better in front of their own stakeholders instead of trying to push against what they're doing. So as long as there's that respect and understanding of other people's, I guess, position, then this thing has a chance to succeed. Otherwise, it won't,
Yeah. Yeah. I
if
mean,
that makes sense.
yeah, no, you need to to bring
You just
people
need
with
to be a
you as
nice
well.
human being. Don't be a dick.
Yeah,
That's
generally that's a good rule, isn't it?
yeah,
You
that's
you
it.
you said something interesting there about kind of adding things on and constantly adding things on rather than thinking about
Yes.
what do the customers want and what could we take away that is not useful for them as well. And I think that's a really interesting point because sometimes in the drive for KPIs, we're kind of adding instead of actually thinking about what the customer wants from there.
Yeah.
So the other thing you talked about is how this framework and a lot of the stuff you write about has much wider appeal beyond just experimentation. And I think that's great because the more we can kind of bring different churches together is always good. So, what I guess a question I have for you about how growth teams could think about this, because this is really tied to intent and impact. So, in terms of growth, or like you said, marketers as well, how do you see this data being useful for them outside of the website design? So kind of thinking about all those intent channels that go into the site.
I love this question. So when I used to do growth, one of the things that I I mean, I still do growth to some degree, but when I was focusing only on growth, one of the things I really liked was growth loops. Man, I love growth loops. And we had some very successful ones when I was working at CXO. But there's also something that I didn't write about yet, but I call it perception loops. So instead of tracking drop-offs or I don't know, funnel thinking, you look at emotional pivots. So this is when contextual experience depth comes in. You basically look like where are those moments when users are becoming confused? Or where are those moments when the users are becoming apprehensive or they are not as engaged? So if you map where these moments occur in the journey and what channels are they happening on, then it's easier to pair your growth strategy with the brand and the consistency of the brand and not just be, I don't know, focused on velocity for the sake of velocity. Let's just be fast and have these growth loops. So I look a lot at perception loops and like what are those signals and moments, those emotional pivots that users have. And it happens quite a lot, especially for instance, if you think about an onboarding flow, there's sometimes in the onboarding flow, there's different instances that can cause a lot of confusion, that can cause a lot of like, what the hell is this product? I thought I signed up for something else. And if you are able to measure those, and here you have to use a mix of course, traditional methods like heat maps and surveys. And of course, you have to look at, I'm not saying ditch classic tracking, data tracking, but I'm saying if you use tools like natural language processing and you have like this reviews at scale, or you have the search at scale, and you have the social at scale connected into your cloud, then it's something that is on top. And now people are gonna be like, yeah, but Juliana, how can I attribute this? Like I already feel people. Like, how can I attribute this? How can I stitch this customer experience that you're talking about? And it's hard because you should like, and I'm thinking about something that Bob Westa said to me like years ago about how contracts creates meaning. Is like instead of focusing on attribution, it's kind of like you should focus on attribution. Please don't quote me like, oh, Juliana said attribution sucks. You should focus on attribution, but you should also focus on perception. And instead of asking what drives these conversions on my website, you should ask what created meaning in this experience. What created meaning? That's a question we don't ask. What created meaning in this experience that got people to convert or to sign up or to come and be part of something? Something must have clicked with them. So the earlier you have this type of signals and understanding and narrative alignment and emotional tone and so on, then the better you are at crafting these experiences and writing the copy and positioning things in the flows. So I guess what I'm trying to say is for product teams and growth teams in general is like you have to add this on top of what you're doing already. I'm not saying cancel your
No.
amplitude or your GA or whatever. No, please don't.
Yeah.
Maybe GA. But but
Yeah.
this is
But
something that comes on top. And it's not science fiction. It's something that your team can do. It's something that there are already many tools that you can use to measure this. It's about bringing all this data together and using it to inform your ideation phases better, to your campaigns, to your experiments, so on.
So what you're kind of getting at is product teams using mapping brand moments into journey design.
Why not? Yes, of
Yeah.
course. It's
So
it's
that could be a way, because if we're kind of talking about being able to use these brand moments across, so when I talked before about how do we get people to invest in it, this is another argument for this. It's not just your brand that's going to be brand team that's going to use it. It's not just your experimentation team. There's kind of applications across the whole business for the stuff that you learn from doing this kind of analysis.
yeah, and it's something that for me, this is kind of like the catalyst for it. It's like I was very frustrated and I started recognizing patterns. Like you see this UX stuff, improvements, or then you see some surveys and then you run some A/B tests and you have dashboards, but you see that all this stuff that comes, like then that happens in the app or in the experience, you're not able to see it in the A/B testing results or in the dashboards or in GA data. So where do you go? Where do you go? Like, why is the revenue low 3 months in advance? Like not, 3 months in a row. Like why? Nothing happening across this funnel. The A/B test looks fine. The dashboard looks good. Nothing happened in BigQuery. So then you have to do this type of work. You have to do this customer voice analysis work, and you have to go outside of your comfort zone. So this pattern mining, it's something that exists for ages. It's just now you have the chance to do it at scale using these language models. It's not AI, it's not evil. It's just, again, you have to be able to use it to your advantage to help you improve the way or show you things you don't think of, but don't use it to replace your thinking at all.
Mm.
Like never use it to replace, use it to find things that your naked eye wouldn't be able to see. So working across brand or UX and SEO and experimentation is kind of like all these teams are missing signals and they don't talk to each other, of course. So again, another thing that I want you guys to take from me today is go and hug an SEO person, go and hug a PPC person. Talk to them. They might have shit that you didn't even think about.
Mm.
So that's kind of like my thinking right now. In the brand moment and my framework, it's again something holistic that helps all the teams to come together and talk about something they all have in common. They all are trying basically to grow a company and to grow the business. So you have to look at the spots and use them to improve your journeys, to do experiment design, to so on.
Yeah, they're talking about, it's bringing them together to talk about the business, but it's actually bringing them together also to talk about the users, which
Yeah,
strangely
absolutely. Yeah.
enough does not happen as much as it should. And like
Hmm.
you were saying earlier, when the entire focus is on features, KPIs, velocity, then you can kind of lose sight of who are the people actually using the website, what do they want from it, and how do they land here. So the information that you're getting out of this framework and out of kind of tracking the brand moments and the sentiment is bringing you back closer to the user as
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
I did say that this hyper focus that we have on interfaces and on the visible layer of experience has turned CRO, yes, in a high velocity discipline, but is very low impact.
Mm.
That's it. It's high velocity. CRO is high velocity, but it's very low impact.
And what do you think, honestly, and I know you'll be honest, why do you think it's ended up that way?
Because it's basically we're only evaluating things that are easy to measure, like an interface. We're only doing things that we can measure, that we can be accountable for. So yes, you run A/B tests, you win, you document shit, you follow all the best practices, but then the customer experience is something that, stays the same. It doesn't change. It doesn't change because you are not adding as part of your A/B test, you're not adding market research, you're not adding search intent, you're not adding uh, advertising behavior. There's so much good data in Google Ads. Let's
Mm.
not talk about PMAX, but there's so much good data in Google Ads. Why is nobody ever using it to make better decisions? Like it's so much that happens across SEO and CRO and PPC, and it's why are we not using this data to make our lives easier? So yes, we run A/B tests, but it's also a very low impact. that is happening, and that's why it gives the. And I'm not saying, please, let's not make this an A/B testing is dead moment, because I see that now the trend on LinkedIn is for somebody to talk shit about A/B testing and rage baiting half of
Yeah, that's the
LinkedIn.
new one.
I've just seen it last night again. I don't even remember who I seen it last night, but that's how you roll right now. So no, A/B testing is not dead. Let's
But you
just
just want what you're advocating for is a more creative way of finding hypotheses to test.
yeah, exactly. It's kind of like and I wrote about this as well. I did have like my own take on on heuristic evaluations, because I really do not like heuristic evaluations. I think they're artifacts of the past. But I will say that heuristic evaluations will show you maybe your usability flaws. Uh, but they're not going to show you the contextual disconnects that happen on your website and how does it pair with intent. Funnel analysis is not going to tell you, it's going to tell you, yes, these people dropped off on add to cart and start checkout. But
Mm,
it's not going to tell you why.
mm,
It's not going to tell you where are people coming from, what is the baggage that they came with. So it's just simply what I'm advocating for is the fact that we need to be more brave to find sources of data to inspire us to test and to come up with hypotheses from different data sources than the ones that are comfortable and easy for us to measure. Otherwise, how can we be like, for me, it's very infuriating to see, and there's a lot of good people in the CRO community that created what CRO is today, and all these people across the 10 years, and I'm thinking about Craig, about the Brian Eisenberg, I'm talking about like the pillars of CR, about Tan, that all were advocating about meaningful experiments and meaningful tests. But I don't see the meaningful part anymore. I
mm,
just see an industry focused on velocity for the sake of velocity. We're using AI to replace UX analysis. We're using AI to replace all the stuff that we should still be doing in our heads. So of
mm.
course, like why are we not using other data sources? Why are we stopping here? It's for me, it's insane that we're not focusing on the meaningful experimentation part. We're just focusing on experimentation, and every day it's a new tool, it's a new AI snake oil shit that happens, and it's like, yeah. So
Yeah, I
that's what
mean, I think your
that's
point.
where I'm at.
Yeah, your point about the measurability of things is if something's easier to measure, it becomes easier to sell as well as a service or as a framework. And you're kind of approaching this brand moments framework and you're saying, look, this is messy data. It's not
Messy.
easy
It's
to
messy, yeah.
attribute, but it's worth it because of the gold in there. So that kind of brings me on to my next question, which is you've started talking about this recently, you're still kind of in the stages of developing it, and I'm just really interested to hear what resistance have you heard to this framework and how would you counter it? So what are the things that people have said, no, Juliana, it won't work because of this, and what has your response been?
Many people are very much, I think right now, the most sexy thing that happens in data, because for those that don't know me, I come from a data background, so I'm a data person that happens to work across CRO and growth. So I think like the sexiest thing, and Mike, let me know if I'm wrong. It's MMM. So like it's mostly what people want is very tidy attribution models. Everybody's super obsessed. And I'm not saying it's wrong. I just don't think they should exclude each other. And as you said earlier, brand moments are messy and they're human and they're hard to isolate. It's just that makes people very uncomfortable, and especially in organizations that are very obsessed with dashboards and very tight data instead of understanding the narrative and the qualitative part and the research part. But the thing is that the discomfort is the point of this conversation. Like you should be uncomfortable because if you only optimize what you can measure, that's why I said you're ignoring 95% of the journey. Website is very small. It's a small point in time. It's an end point. It's not the beginning of the experience as it used to be. So you should be, it's hard. It's hard to convince. I'm not gonna lie. I did sell this and I am selling this and I have the privilege to work with companies that have been doing brand for a long time, and they have brand as part of product and marketing and growth in general. But this is, of course, enterprise companies, because I have the privilege to work with enterprise company, and I totally appreciate that not everybody is in an enterprise company, so it's very hard. But at the same time, the trade-off, or like the good part here, is that if you're in a smaller company or if you're a consultant, is that you can be very scrappy about this and you can experiment faster. And you,
Mm.
even if I deal with this and I do have the support and I can sell this in, it's still gonna take me a year or 6 months to deploy this. But you guys, because if you're working with smaller companies or if you're working as a freelancer, your agility is like 10x faster. Like you can deploy this shit in 2 weeks. And
Mm.
it's good and bad. And yes, exactly. I am reading in the in the chat too. Yeah, it's the dark side. Like it's something, like, and you don't need a lot of money to do this. Like you can really start with something that is very, very old, which is like pattern recognition and pattern mining. So you search queries, reviews, session replays, TikTok mentions, support chats. Like this is all out there. You just
Yeah.
need, don't put this into ChatGPT for the love of what's sacred. Please don't take all this stuff and put it in GPT or Gemini and ask for patterns. And like, oh my God, no, please don't do that. But if you have access to a cloud platform, export, it's a link. Most of the platform have a BigQuery export. Just use that. Ask your analysts in the team to do a Search Console export, a Brand Watch or a Hotsuite or like UScan, or there's so many tools that do this stuff, social media part.
Mm.
Export them to BigQuery, put them in a Looker Studio, go crazy afterwards and have fun with it and enjoy it and work together with your data team. Like you don't need large research budgets. Even if you put them in a Google Sheet and you use AppScript that calls into Gemini, because if you're, most of the companies right now that pay for the Google Suite have access to Gemini
Mm.
in their cloud also. Like you don't even need to know SQL. Like you can use prompting inside the Google AI Studio and write the prompt, and the prompt is gonna write the SQL query for you, and it's gonna go through your database. Like there's so many things you can do right now. It's just, again, do you want to go through this messy data and come up with ideas that nobody comes with, or you just want to color between the lines?
But
That's kind of like it.
you're talking about everyone along a spectrum, right? So you've got huge
Yeah.
corporate with tons of data scientists where you can do this really slickly, but the base argument of your model could even lend itself to a sole contractor doing
Yes.
doing tests and going and looking at Reddit, right? Not even analyzing the data, just starting to think about the brand moments and think about the influence it might have on their hypotheses and their
Yeah.
tests. So I think that's really cool when a framework can speak to somebody's job as a single sole contractor and also somebody at a huge, huge company as well. So
A
I think that's
100% you
really
don't need, of course, when I'm speaking about enterprise, I'm thinking about, of course, the fact that we have these models and proprietary technology that you can deploy in the cloud, and it's different, but you can also do it yourself, and it's fun. It's so fun, and it's like it for product teams or for growth teams. This is just giving you unfair competitive advantage in terms of research.
yeah.
Like it's stuff that you don't even think about, and I helped it, and I've seen it's like, for instance, if you think about traditional methods of basically testing stuff, and that completely miss the point of this brand moments, is like error messages. I always like to give this example. So if you do A/B tests, they would focus on error rate or resolution time if you're testing, right, for error messages. And yeah,
Mhm.
you do this a lot in product teams. But the thing is that if you are looking to understand, for instance, like if you're looking at reviews and intent and so on, and you see kind of like where people are from a vibe perspective, I can't believe I'm saying vibe, you can write very empathetic copy to those error messages that reduces churn versus having the perfect button and the perfect wireframe where you can click. So like instead of just focusing necessarily on the interface where the error happens, it's kind of having better copy that fits with what people were saying in the review. So for instance, if you're
Mm.
having, I guess, a big issue or a big bug that happens with account creation or password reset, and I know a lot of people will say, why isn't it so easy to fix that? Sometimes it's not, especially when you're an app and you're using three types of authentication and the Gmail authentication and single sign-in, and you're using so many tools. Sometimes shit happens, and no matter how good of a product person you are or developer, you cannot fix it because it's not depending on you.
Mm.
So you run A/B tests and you position this better in the interface, but you're not changing the copy messages or you're not changing the way you explain the error. So like stuff like this happens a lot. So that's like when I'm looking at completely missing the point is that, or for instance, if you see that you have 95% informational intent of traffic that comes to your website, and your website is sales today, 25% off of everything, just go add to cart, add to cart. It's like you're not saying like what are you, what you know, where have I landed from? And I see a gorgeous ad about how you're sustainable and you're thinking about children that are in distress and stuff like this, and I come to your website and you're just trying to get my money. Again, depth, contextual
So
experience.
yeah, the interesting thing there is you're talking about at what stage do we start thinking about the sell? And are you essentially advocating that we need to like ease them into the selling bit, give them the information that they need? Because I don't want people to come away from this and think, oh, Juliana said it's not important to sell to someone on a website. You're
Yeah,
saying,
please don't come with
yeah,
that.
you're saying it needs to be in the right place.
It's just about courtmanship. It's basic courtmanship. Like take me to dinner first. Don't just expect me to drop my pants off when I see you. Take me to it's foreplay, people. It's like basic stuff. Like we as humans want to be taken on a journey, want to be taken, we want to feel important. There are smarter people than me that explain these cognitive biases that we have. So when you land on a website, sure, sell, of course, you have a business, but also if you see that somebody, this is again a tracking issue or like a technical implementation issue, but if someone comes from this specific ad set that is talking about lifestyle, please send them to a landing page where that message is still enforced so you can continue the same motivation across the funnel so that people convert. But if you come from lifestyle choices to something about all the sales of the day, then what do you expect? You know, people will bounce because you're not continuing the story. It's like, you know, like when you have like a very good dream at night and then you wake up and it's just something really cool is about to happen and then you wake up. Like that's how it feels for this
That's landing on the
experience.
website. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it is. Like I'm coming here like hyped, excited. Oh my God, oh my God. And this happened to me with a Norwegian brand. I have melasma on my face. You cannot see it because I have makeup, but I have melasma. So I saw an ad on Instagram that there's this Norwegian oil that you put on the face to get rid of acne, scars, and melasma and so on. Damn, I was like, this is dope. So I go on the website. The website was hyping me up. Great, get rid of it. And of course, because I'm not gonna buy directly like that, I went on Reddit. I go on Reddit for everything. All my life choices depend on Reddit. So I started looking and it was like scam, scam, scam. It's not good. It's not good. It's not good. So if I was that brand and I have so much bad shit going on Reddit, the first thing I would do is I would try to address that in the copy of my website. Claims, real customer reviews, actual videos of this stuff.
Mm.
So this is my example. This is what you need to do. You have to make sure you're telling the same story everywhere.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
addressing that concern before it even
Yeah.
arises. Because in your situation, you landed on that site, you probably had a bit of a look around and then went over to Reddit. If you'd already established on the website, this isn't a scam,
Yeah.
then the Reddit stuff is less impactful. You've already
Exactly.
built a brand moment before you went and searched on Reddit. So no matter what you read on Reddit, it's you're still colored
I
by what
still
you
want to
saw on
buy
the
it. Yeah.
website. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that
I'll
makes
send it to you on LinkedIn.
yes. So there's an interesting question from Daphne in the chat.
Yes.
Um,
Well,
and Daphne, thank you for coming. And also Daphne talks a lot about growth loops and stuff. I'm sure she loved the stuff you were saying earlier, and also works with a lot of wellness brands. So stuff we were just talking about will make chime with her definitely. So she said, What are your thoughts, Juliana, on using brand measures to measure the success of these improvements based on customer insights? Example, Wise has a big case study on how to optimize their NPS and value delivered to users drove their growth.
So, as you probably, if I don't know if Daphne was here from the beginning, but I hate NPS with passion. Like, there's nothing I hate more than NPS. Hold up, because there you go, because Mike was obsessing me with this Norwegian brand. So now I can think. I have ADHD, people. So back to Daphne. um, I hate NPS with a passion. Now, I know a lot of people like it, and I just think NPS is such a curated metric because if people are responding to NPS are definitely extremely happy or extremely sad or angry. So it's just extremes. So one thing I learned from statistics is that, extremes matter, but you also have to look in the middle and understand what's going on over there. And I think customer happiness, it's one of those make-believe metrics because you can be a very angry customer at the brand and you still buy. I completely hate Amazon, but here I am, I'm dropping. I just buy shit on Amazon that I don't need. Like I genuinely don't, I love Amazon as a concept, but I don't like the seller stuff. I don't trust all the time or like in NPS is very, very restrictive and very like make believe. But I do, yes, no, yeah. I mean, you have mixed feelings. Like I do see the purpose of it. Maybe, yeah. For instance, exactly the smiley face. Yes, exactly at the airport. I mean, I do. The only way so we have to also be very careful with NPS because a lot of people, NPS is a question on the scale of 0 to 9, how much you recommend this to friends, family, and whatever. But a lot of people take NPS and make it into something totally different than NPS when they ask open-ended questions. That's not NPS. NPS is a singular metric, a singular number you give from 0 to 9. If you're adding survey questions on top of NPS, that's not NPS anymore. That's not how it works. It's a Franken metric, Franken metric. So that's what I'm trying to say. So I do think traditional brand measurement methods are not something we should give up on. I just think they are not measuring brand in the world that we're living today. Like, I mean, they're not enough. I would still use media performance to measure a campaign success. I would still use classic surveys and brand lists and so on, for sure. But on top of this, I want to put this intelligence layer that looks at how this perception and narratives are built in real time across different channels. How are people, I guess, how is this narrative shifting and propagated in the market? And I would put this on top of the traditional method so I can have a whole view, a more holistic view. I wouldn't just be happy with knowing how my ads perform on Instagram or on Meta. And then because I came and I had AOV of $200 and I don't know, 15-cent conversion rate, I'm happy. I did my job, Jesus. It's nothing else for me. So I do want to know, for instance, if I'm launching a new product, a new phone, I want to know in real time what are the emerging trends that are happening on Reddit. Can I take them in real time fast enough and I can tweet about it? Or can I write a blog article? Or did I spend enough on PR? Or is my website optimized? Because I see 10 people on Reddit saying they cannot check out. Shit, let me go and check out. Like it's important for you to have this knowledge coming to you. But again, I will say something that a lot of us are talking about real-time data and real-time in general, but real-time data needs real-time people that make real-time decisions to work. Otherwise, it's useless.
Mm-hmm.
So no matter how much I speak about this stuff, if you don't have the people there, yeah, exactly. It's a wrapped up average on NPS. And averages suck. Look at distribution, people. Distribution. Averages are a lot.
Averages are clean and perception is messy.
And yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Like it's something that if it's complex, is gonna get people angsty about things. But I do think, Daphne, like to your question, I do think I see the purpose of it. And I know Wise is really good. I know some of their case studies I did read. They have a great, strong brand. For me personally, again, I just NPS is very easy to gain. And it's very, but again, it's as you said, Marcella, it doesn't give you a headache. NPS doesn't give you a headache because it's easy to stomach. Come with sentiment analysis and brand perception scoring and engagement scoring, and come with these other metrics that I've been talking about.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's gonna be like, oh, I didn't know people hate us like that.
But it's not easy to keep your finger on the pulse in the way that you're kind of describing, but
You have to
nothing
agree.
worthwhile is ever easy. Well,
Now it's
rarely.
early days. Now it's early days, and I don't think I'm being necessarily like pioneering this thinking. I think a lot of us in the industry see this already happening. I just put a
Mhm.
name to it. But I think everybody that works in growth or in product or in CRO or even ads and even SEO, whatever, we are seeing this. We're being disrupted as fuck as an industry right now. Digital marketing is disrupted as fuck. So you either use the tools and technology that you can use right now and you're very privileged to have to learn and be ahead of time, or you're just gonna be like the angry old man and be, oh, this AI shit. Ah. But also don't be a snake oil vendor and come up with AI bullshit sentiment detection tools and try to sell it to people.
I think there's enough snake oil out there, isn't there? Um, so
Yes.
we are a little bit over time, but I
Yeah.
thought we would be.
Yes,
Um,
I do that.
Thank you so much for coming on today and talking to me about it. It's been really interesting, and I'm looking forward to the more stuff you're going to write about this and
Yeah.
seeing you present more about it. So, to mention before we go, Juliana has a newsletter called Beyond the Mean that you can sign up for. She has the Standard Deviation podcast as well. And if you have any follow-up questions, and she might regret this, she's told me that I can point you in the direction of her LinkedIn. So anything you want to ask her about anything at all, melasma cream or attribution, you just get her on LinkedIn. So she also has a course coming up on strategic analytics,
Yes.
that I'm going to put a link for in the chat for pre-registration. So that's kind of early announcement of that one.
Yeah.
Um, Thank you so much, Juliana. It's been really good to chat. Twinning.
Thank you. I was trying to make those reactions, but I realized I turned them off. But
Yes.
thank you so much for having me, and thanks Daphne and Craig and Mike and everybody that interacted in the chat. And again, like check out my newsletter. I wrote about this in greater detail, and you actually have the framework there, and you can use it directly. Feel free to reach out, not for everything, but I guess in decent terms, feel free to reach out and ask me questions. And yeah, really happy to have been